Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. You know, I have had the privilege over the course of the last year and a half of interviewing some fascinating people and some impressive people. And tonight, I'm going to introduce you to an incredibly impressive, fascinating individual who just in December was awarded the Order of Canada. Her name is Gina Cody. Gina Cody arrived from Iran, I think it was 38 years ago. And she at the time had a bachelor's in engineering. And she became one of the most preeminent engineers in Canada. And let me just for a second give you a sense of some of her accomplishments in addition to the Order of Canada. In 2020, she was named one of Canada's top women of influence. 2019, named to the Order of Montreal and inducted as a fellow of the Canadian Academy of Engineers. 2018, the Gina Cody Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science was renamed in her honor following a $15 million donation. It's the only Canadian engineering faculty to have a woman's name associated with it. She's the chair of the Industrial Advisory Board for the Gina Cody School of Engineering and Computer Science. She's the former executive chair and principal shareholder of Construction Control, Inc. 2011, she was named the Alumna of the Year by Concordia Alumni Association. 2010, one of Canada's top women entrepreneurs by Profit Magazine. 2004, president of CCI Construction. One of Canada's best managed companies, according to the Financial Post. 1989, first woman to be awarded her PhD in building engineering at Concordia University. She's the first woman engineer to climb a construction crane in Canada. Gina Cody, welcome to our program. What an impressive background.
Thank you for having me.
So 38 years ago, you arrived from Iran with just a bachelor's in engineering. Did you have any dream that all of what you've accomplished, you'd accomplish?
Actually, it was more than 40 years ago. It was 1979.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
That's okay. It's a few years here and there. It doesn't make much of a difference. No, I was a young woman at the time, 22 years old. I guess at that time when you're so young, your whole vision is survival. Being alone, I came here. Actually, I had a brother in Montreal, so I joined him. He was there, but other than that, I was alone by myself. I had my Bachelor of Engineering already completed in a top, I would say, university in Iran, and I came here to do my master and PhD. I came to do my higher education, as we say. What made it even more challenging, I left during the revolution in Iran. So it was very difficult, the turmoil in Iran, and also financially, I had only $2,000. My parents couldn't send money. Everything was sort of in turmoil. So
wasn't it 78, 79 in the fall?
That's correct.
The Shah of Iran was overthrown and the Ayatollah Khomeini took over.
That's exactly the time I came, 1979.
How did you?
I arrived on Labor Day weekend.
How did you leave?
I came actually for a period of time. They allowed those who had already registered to go to, we had to write an English exam that was done before the kind of revolution. And I already had decided to leave for my higher education anyway. So there was a period that allowed people to get their passports and to go for those who wanted to go to do their master and PhD. So I fell in that category. I was very lucky. I got my passport and I was allowed to leave. There was I came as on a student visa to Canada. I went to the Canadian consulate, got my visa, and I arrived on Labor Day weekend.
Now, so many people that come to Canada find that as immigrants, their foreign credentials aren't recognized, and you undoubtedly would have had some of that, but then you're compounded by the fact that you're coming as a young woman. Tell me what it was like coming to Canada, 22 years old, as a young immigrant woman.
My story actually is quite maybe interesting, and maybe I was very lucky. I arrived on the Labor Day weekend. And then I was supposed to go to another university in Montreal. But my brother, who had just graduated from Concordia, said to me that this professor wants to meet you at Concordia before you go and register at the other university. So we went on the Tuesday morning, first thing in the morning. I got dressed and we left with my brother, and he introduced me to this professor. I had an interview with him for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't remember the exact period. And then after that, he said, why would you go anywhere else? Come to Concordia, we give you a scholarship. He was really impressed by my marks and I guess the way I was handling myself. So he took me to the registrar's office, but remember, this is over 40 years ago. He got me acceptance to Concordia immediately. They looked at my other acceptance and they said, yep, she's good, the marks are good. So they typed me an acceptance, and then he said, go to the Canada Immigration Office and get your work permit. I need you to start working in the lab this afternoon. I came out. I told my brother I have to go to the immigration office. He said, what are you talking about? I said, yes. So we took the taxi, and I was working in the lab that afternoon.
On your second day in Canada, you got a job, you got accepted, you got a scholarship.
Yes. And that is why I feel so thrilled by giving back.
What was the professor's name? Do you remember?
Pardon me?
What was the professor's name? Do you remember?
Oh, yes, Cedric Marsh. I speak about him all the time. Unfortunately, he has passed away. I wish he was alive and he could have seen transformation in me, but he witnessed my growth. So
what a great story.
Yes.
Now, we're going to come back after a break and talk in greater detail. But I understand that one of the messages that you really want to convey to people, probably over your whole career, but primarily because of your being awarded the Order of Canada, is that females can accomplish what they want to accomplish in anything, but particularly in engineering and the sciences. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. That is what I have devoted my time fully since I retired.
So you've got some females, young females listening to you right now. What's your message to them?
Persevere, don't give up, work hard. You will get there.
Persevere, don't give up, work hard. Gina Cody, thank you so much. This is going to be a thrill getting to know you. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just a minute with Gina Cody, who is a recent recipient of the Order of Canada, has a 40-year career with an undergraduate degree in engineering, a master's degree, a PhD, and numerous different honors. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. I have the privilege of every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock bringing you interviews with some fascinating people. And tonight is not only no exception, it's probably one of the most interesting people that I've had the privilege of meeting and introducing to you. Gina Cody, who just on December 30th received the Order of Canada, and her list of awards and accomplishments previous to that is equally impressive. But probably the most impressive thing is that she arrived at 22 from Iran in the middle of a revolution in Iran. And on her second day in the country, got a job, got accepted to a new university, and got a scholarship. And you've achieved great things since then. And Gina, what you say is hard work, perseverance, and don't give up is the key. Was that something that you learned as a child? Is that something you learned from this first professor? How did you come to have this personality, this attitude of don't give up?
It goes back to when I was a child. Actually, the new book by Peter Mansbridge, Extraordinary Canadians, I'm the second chapter in that book. So it goes more into my story for those of you, people, your audience who want to really know a little bit more about me. They can purchase the book and read it or borrow the book from the library. But one of my privileges was I was born in a family that valued education. My mother, who married young, had a child when she was a teenager. She believed that the only way for women to be independent, and the independence was the most important thing for my mother, for her daughters, me and my sister, was through education. So she always, from childhood, she told us, you need to get to the highest level of education as you can. So that was what I was fed from childhood. My sister became a successful dentist. I became an engineer. And my father, on the other side, who was a teacher and had a private boys' high school, believed that me as a woman, and my sister as well, we need to be able to manage ourselves in a male-dominated work. So in the summer, when I was 16, he would get me to teach in his boys' high school in the summer courses. So he would sit in the back of the class so the boys wouldn't misbehave. And I would teach math and sciences. And he used to say, if you can handle boys this age, you can handle anyone. And boy, he was right. So that was my upbringing. I used to do competition in poetry readings and being able to stand in front of crowds. So we, at the end of every year when the class, you have celebration of the end of the class, I would be sometimes doing poetry reading or any event. I would be up there doing something.
Now, let me ask you a question if I could. So you're saying that you actually taught teenage boys. Some people think that for females to be most successful, they should be in all girls schools and remove them from the influence of boys, because then they, I guess, don't get distracted or don't get humiliated or don't have, sexual overtones and things like that. But it seems like you actually were thrown into the den of teenage boys and did great things. What's the right strategy there? Is it to separate males and females, or is it to make sure that males can deal in a female environment and females can deal in a male environment?
I think people can have different preferences. I can't tell. I'm not a psychologist to say what is the best, but in my opinion, I think they have to see each other and be brought up together, to respect each other and to learn how they can manage each other. So if you kind of put them each in a room and all of a sudden bring them back together, it's not going to work. I think harmonization and understanding of each gender is by respecting each other and being together. And I really have difficulty with this whole binary issue as well, because then if it's all boys and all girls, what happens to the other genders that may have difficulty identifying where they fit? So that also becomes an issue that we need to respect and understand.
Okay. So you were brought up to be a high achiever from an early age, both with your mother and your father, but then you left them and came to Canada. So therefore you were in Canada without that family influence. Tell me, what was that like? Or the fact that your brother was here and that you had this professor that appeared to be a mentor, was that the replacement for that parental influence?
I was quite independent. That's what my father always believed I had to be. So I don't think I was that concerned, but as any other young person separating from parents, I never lived out of the house, never mind living by my own. It was difficult. So you go through homesickness, you are lonely at times, but I would say the first 6 months, but I was so busy studying, working at the university. I really didn't have much time to get homesick other than, that 15 minutes of maybe night when I go to bed and so, I miss my parents, but didn't last long. No, I was able to stand. I was very determined. I have always been very goal-oriented, that I want to do this. I focus, I get there, hopefully, and I work hard and I get it.
No, I think today people's impression of Iran is that it wasn't it's not necessarily the most equal between males and females. There isn't a lot of gender parity, but I've heard that there was a fairly dynamic economic environment under the Shah, and that was very modern. What was your experience in Iran before you left Iran?
Before I left Iran, like, at university, we were all like together and no difference in the genders. And even in today's Iran, women are working, women are going to universities. Believe it or not, the percentage of women in Iran going to STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, is much higher than Canada and North America.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes, women are highly educated. My sister lives in Iran. My nieces all have PhD in cyber technology, and they're all highly educated, and they're working, they're managing. So it's the only difference is that there is a clothing requirement, I would say, that they have to cover their hair, they can dress the way they want. There are certain issues that the equality between men and women are not there, but when it comes to work and independence, there is no difference. The women can do what they want to do, other than, as I said, and the boys are limited on that too, because it's a religious country, and they follow written rules of what they believe.
So let's quickly walk through some of your history. So you got your master's in engineering at Concordia.
That's correct.
And then immediately went in to do your PhD?
That's correct.
And became a academic?
No, actually, I moved to Toronto. I hadn't yet finished my PhD. I left I had done my tests and all my research, but the writing wasn't finished. So I got a job with the Ministry of Housing in Toronto, and I moved to Toronto in 1986. And then I started in the company that I became the sole owner at the end. I started working a year after that. So I worked a year at the Ministry of Housing writing building codes. And then after that, I went on to private practice and grew in that company. And then I retired.
Now, you obviously had a undergraduate engineering, a master's in engineering, a PhD in engineering, a year with the provincial government housing department, and working on building codes. But then to become an entrepreneur and start a business and grow that business in engineering, that must have been pretty challenging.
Yes and no. I think I was always driven. So the first job I started, as you mentioned, I was climbing cranes at the skyline of Toronto. I was the only woman doing a crane inspection in Toronto. That was in 1987 when I started doing that. There wasn't, you would go to construction site, there was no female, never mind going up the cranes and inspecting cranes. So that's how I started being in the construction business and in the engineering field, so to speak. And I think
So I'm sorry, you're probably in your 30s at the time. You've got a PhD, you're a young woman, and you're climbing up cranes to inspect them?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yes,
and how did people react to that?
It was a bit of a shock for them. And what I always said, that as a woman doing work in a male-dominated area of practice, you really have to be way better than your male counterparts to be accepted equal. So I had to work hard. I had to really know my subject matter. I had to be prepared to answer questions. But I will be questioned at time. There was a time, I remember I went, at that time I was married. I went with my husband. It was actually during a weekend, there was a construction shutdown and I had to inspect the crane. And he says, okay, I come with you, we can go for lunch after. So I went up the crane, and while I was there, the crane operator moved the boom which is not allowed. He just wanted to see if I scream or do something. And so I just didn't pay attention. I came out and wrote my report, say goodbye to him, didn't say a word to him. I came down and my husband said, I was watching the guy move the boom. And I said, yeah. He says, what did you do? I said, nothing.
Held on tight, held on real tight.
Yes. He says, why not? I said, I just wanted to be accepted. Now that guy never forgets me. He thought I will be fearful. So you cannot confront at issues, especially that's years, decades ago. And confronting was not my way of dealing with issues.
Now that's, that was a maybe a bad joke or a bad thing, but a lot of females were confronted with sexual aggression, approaches, whatever you want to call it. Were you, and how do you deal with that?
It's unfortunate for a lot of women who feel that it happens to them. It's reality. I was really lucky. I never had that issue during my career. And maybe because of the type of work I did, I was a consultant and I was independent. I didn't have to be, to put up with anything, but I do get it. And in construction, especially in those areas of practice, they do exist. And it discourages many women to stop working in those environments. And the reason we see very few in those areas is just because of the bad environment that exists.
Now, I'm not suggesting you had to put up with the guy moving the boom, but things like that do happen. So I guess your advice to females, to frankly anyone, when that kind of incident happens, is to not overreact. Is that what it is?
No, not at all. That to me was a stupidity. I think he learned his lesson. I don't think he would do that ever again.
Right.
But that was, again, it was a type of a misogyny or chauvinism. I think I was very young. I didn't say anything. If I go there today, I would say something.
But you're suggesting really that by not confronting him and by not saying something, you actually had more of an impact than if you had complained or said something.
I know at that moment, I'm sure I was giving vibes that was very, very strong. I think I was never a pushover. But I did not talk about what he did, but the look I gave him was enough for him to understand. So I think that there are different ways of confronting. If people were around me, maybe, you have to confront, but it's only me and him on top of the boom. He is in the cabin, I'm on the boom. It's just, you feel fearful.
Imagine. What did your husband want to do? Go up and punch the guy?
No, not really. I was done and I came down. I could have reported. I was in a bit more power than that crane operator was. I was in much more power. I could shut down that crane that they couldn't work because I was there to make the whole population go back to work. So they needed me as much as they needed him, but that was more important. I was the one with the education telling him what he can do and he cannot do.
So you spent 30 years running this company?
That's correct.
Congratulations. And I understand that recently you've made a fairly significant donation to the Concordia University.
That's correct, in 2018.
Tell me what the donation is funding.
The donation was for diversity, inclusion, and equity for the University Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science. It was mainly to be spent on scholarships for undergraduate and graduates. was for $15 million, and also 3 chairs. One was artificial intelligence, another one was Internet of Things, and the third one was advanced manufacturing, which these are the 3 components of fourth industrial revolution. And my whole aim was that in today's technology, in today's era that we are living, women have to they have no other choice than get involved in STEM. And with the numbers that are at universities, is not going to help. And during the fourth industrial revolution, which is the connectivity between technology, which is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and smart cities, all of these are part of the fourth industrial revolution. Women have to get into STEM program, because if they don't, they won't have jobs. And it is a message that has to be communicated to all young girls and young women, that the time is running out, they have to get involved. And that was why I wanted a faculty of engineering and computer. And it wasn't about me, it was about a woman's name that will give them that assurance that they do belong.
We're chatting tonight with Gina Cody, who is a recent recipient of the Order of Canada, who donated $15 million to the Concordia Faculty of Engineering. And we're just talking about the different research chairs that she has endowed. We're going to take a break, and I'm going to ask her a little bit more about this fourth industrial revolution. Stay with us. What a fascinating evening chatting with Gina Cody, who 40 years ago arrived as a 22-year-old bachelor's in engineering student from Iran. And on her second day in Canada, got accepted to a new university, got a scholarship, got a new job, took that, finished her master's, got her PhD, worked for Ontario provincial government, and then launched her own company, a consulting engineering company, where she was inspecting cranes and I guess a whole bunch more, and recently gave a very significant donation to the University of Concordia, the Concordia Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science, to fund, amongst other things, 3 different research chairs. And Gina, I wonder if we could talk for a few minutes about, you called it the fourth industrial revolution. Why do you think this is the fourth industrial revolution?
That is what we are. The whole society refers to it. The first industrial revolution, which was in 1760, was a transition to new manufacturing processes. And it was the steam power, water power. That is what started the first industrial revolution. Then fast forward a century later, in the 1870s, we had the second industrial revolution, which was the mass production due to electricity, gas and oil. So electricity really was the start of the second industrial revolution. Then fast forward a century later, again in 1969, we had the third industrial revolution, which was electronics and IT systems, automation, computers, telecommunications. These are all part of our third digital era started. Then the fourth industrial revolution, which they started with manufacturing 4.0, which is really they refer to as the fourth industrial revolution, was when the cyber physical systems started. We were able to connect things through internet. Everything got connected. And that was where we are at right now, which is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, which is connecting all your devices and having automated cars and everything else that goes with it, smart cities that you can have a whole city connected. And so that is the era we are living, and manufacturing, which is advanced manufacturing through automation and 3D printers and all of that kind of falls into the fourth industrial revolution.
And you think that artificial intelligence and machine learning and the Internet of Things and advanced manufacturing is going to have as big an impact on changing industry as the previous three revolutions?
Absolutely. It has already started, and it is very quick because between the third and fourth, we had only 45 years of gap. The other revolutions were a century apart. And this era is moving very fast. It's quick. You see that platforms and things like, Apple computers and all the ITs are running the world. It's becoming a bit overwhelming for all of us, the information that they're collecting, information technology, but they're using all of that information for good and bad. But hopefully it would be us who will control the good part of it and stop the bad part of it. We have to be part of it.
And if you're right, and I think you are, how do you recommend people best get ready for it? Education?
Absolutely. They have to get education. And that's why I constantly speak with young women schools to encourage their young women and girls to get into STEM programs, to get into mathematics, because I believe women and men are equal when it comes to their brain. There is no difference. Our brains are functioning exactly the same. So we both can succeed in it. And they have to get into male-dominated areas of practice and show that they can do it and they be part of it. And they are there, but the numbers are not good enough.
And so what's your recommendation? Is it that we have quota systems or affirmative action or just encouragement or scholarships or all of the above?
I think encouragement from childhood. A lot of problems arises from parents. They discourage their girls from doing things that are sort of meant for boys, not for their girls. Teachers at schools, they have to encourage their students to get into STEM program. It's getting better, but even in 2019, we had a school in Quebec that the science class was segregated. They put girls to learn gardening and cooking, and the boys into learning cybersecurity, robotics and stuff like that. So that's a school. That's not acceptable. That shouldn't happen. And that is what we need to do.
So one of the concerns that some people have, I think, is that they think if they're too smart in math and science and engineering, that they intimidate males. And so they're not going to attract the same kind of boyfriend.
If that is a problem, you don't want that boyfriend.
I agree completely. Good answer. So how do you encourage? How do you, a teenage girl sitting in front of you that worries about exactly that issue? I think your answer is the appropriate answer, but a lot of teenage girls still are worried about that. And as you said, parents and teachers may have this not misogynistic, but this sort of attitude that they should take art and cooking and English and nursing and healthcare and things like that. How do you encourage that teenage girl to pursue STEM?
One of the issues that girls, and in particular, they want to be in programs that are compassionate. They want to help others. So that's why they get into programs such as nursing. We don't have a problem in medicine. There are a lot of women in medicine. There are equal numbers. In law, we don't have a problem either, because again, women feel that they can be there to help others. But when it comes to engineering, there has been that perception because there are not enough role models, and also the misunderstanding of what professional engineering is all about. But when you tell them that go into a operating room, every equipment there is designed and built by engineers, so you could help people survival of people are dependent on those engineers that are making all those machines that do the operation, that do heart transplants, that do all the robotics. So the minute you send that message that you could be as helpful and as compassionate as an engineer, as a doctor, the same, that kind of gives them the relief of understanding that this is, it's not more fear of the education system, because they do well. But if we tell them from childhood that you're not good at that, then they get discouraged. In older times, the strengths mattered. If you had power to lift things, that mattered. So certain jobs women couldn't do. But in today's technology, power as a physical power doesn't matter. It's your brain power that matters. And the brain of women and men are equal.
So I think your encouragement is right, and I think that sponsorship of scholarships for people that are going to go to your Faculty of Engineering is completely appropriate. But I guess my concern is that if they're ready to get a scholarship, they've already learned the things that you're suggesting, and it's it's the people that are 10 years younger or 7 years younger in early teenage years that you've got to influence.
You're absolutely correct, Brian. And that's why I keep saying that we need to encourage the parents. I go to high schools at times. I give talks on that. And through the school, we are putting a lot of programs at the Gina Cody School. And I believe a lot of other universities are doing the same thing, putting programs, bringing girl sets. There's all kinds of summer programs for young children to come to universities. Every 8th of March, which is International Women's Day, we bring hundreds of students from different high schools in Montreal, and they're all different ages. And I give talks. I go to like Ontario Power Generation, for example, bring busloads of students from close by Indigenous communities and high schools, and I give talks to them that why is it important for them to get into a STEM program. So I do recognize what you're saying, Brian, and I'm hoping that we overcome that. And I'm doing my small part. I'm just a very tiny piece of this puzzle. We need everybody to get involved, and all the teachers, all the parents. But the moment, just having this talk with you, Brian, tonight, that is sending message to your audience to encourage their children. So I'm kind of getting my message through you right now. So
appreciate that. And I look forward to hopefully some people listening to it and following it. Now, the other thing that certainly your career history suggests is the success in entrepreneurship. And I think that's another lesson that female entrepreneurship is a huge opportunity as well, is it not?
Absolutely. Actually, women have been entrepreneurs for centuries. If you go to villages in India, in Iran, a lot of women are small entrepreneurs. They build things by their hands. They sell them on the streets. These are entrepreneurs by themselves, that they can do what they can. The system allows them to do. So they do but the minute they take the economics of the household in their hand, that household usually survives better the hardship than if the women are not partnering with their husbands on that. So women are good entrepreneurs. It's just they haven't had the chance and opportunity to be in the business. But we see that now it has changing. Women are growing numbers to all businesses, in cybersecurity system, in IT system. They're all over, and they are owning company. They are starting startups. There are a lot of startups starting by women. They're doing amazing thing. It's just the numbers are small, and they are realizing that they can do it, and they are doing it.
We've seen this movement, I think probably more in the United States than maybe in Canada, and maybe best exemplified by these riots of the prior week. But where some people are objecting to globalization, they're objecting to modernity, they're objecting to maybe diversity, immigration, maybe female advancement, and they sort of want to go back to a world where, white men ran things. So not only do you need to encourage females, but somehow you've got to have a message to these people that are reluctant to allow this evolution to take place. What's your answer to them?
I think, you mentioned that when I talked about that crane operator, I didn't say anything because I was very young at that time and I didn't, I just walked off, but I gave him very harsh look. But I think people need to speak up because we have created, unfortunately, over the past number of years, courtesy of our southern neighbor, that white supremacy is a fact or is accepted or can be tolerated. That's really the whole issue. We never thought after the Second World War anybody would come on the street with the Nazi flag. We saw that. So I think people have to stand up and speak up. We cannot allow that type of behavior continue. I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman of color. I speak up. I don't tolerate any form of racism, inequality. To me, gender equality, race, they're all the same. They're all, as you mentioned quite nicely, they all fit into one category and those people, because they have, and a lot of it is due to lack of education. Unfortunately, there are some educated people that may have that type of ideology, but I think if they study and understand economics, the whole issue of diversity and inclusion is not morally and ethically right. It is a smart business as well. There was a study done by McKinsey and Company, and they found that companies that they had gender equality, they were more profitable, and companies that they had diversity and also gender equality in their companies, in their executive, they were up to 39%, over 30% more profitable. So when you bring the profit into it, so it's a smart business. That is why, if you look at the successful companies around the world, doesn't matter, US, Canada, China, anywhere, they all want diverse and gender equality in their companies because they bring different views, they bring different visions to production. And we are working as we said, in the fourth industrial revolution. It's all about technology. One of the biggest issue, for example, I have, and it was in one of the op-eds I wrote a year ago, it was about if women don't get involved, the whole technology will be built by those who build them. And an example of that is the safety features in cars are built for average size men. So women, despite the fact that people may say the women are bad drivers, no, women are better drivers. They have a higher percentage of injuries in women than men because these safety features are not protecting women. They're protecting average size men. So, and that goes towards a lot of the stuff like your phone, cell phones, originally they were big sizes because men's hands were bigger. So the more you get women involved in the technology, then it will be built by those who build them. And for example, one of the whole issues are the programs that have been built for softwares to recommend for parole officers, for example, are biased towards Black. They're biased towards Indigenous people because it's built by white people and the features are not there. So they have very high percentage of false positive for reoffenders. It comes to, for example, face recognition systems. The ones that are built in North America are flawed in that have high percentage of, by a factor of 100 almost, that they will identify Blacks and Asians, Indigenous people, non-white people with higher percentage of false positives. Now you take the programs, the artificial intelligence program that are face recognition based from the Asian countries, they have a much lesser false positive because they do recognize the Asians exist and they have to recognize the white people.
Right.
So they are more inclusive.
We're having a fascinating conversation tonight with Gina Cody, who is a recent recipient of the Order of Canada, a 40-year immigrant to Canada from Iran, who has been a huge success, has a whole list of accolades, starting with a Master's of Engineering, a PhD in Engineering, started her own business, and numerous different people have given her awards of Order of Montreal and inducted as a fellow of the Canadian Academy of Engineering, Canada's top women of influence, et cetera, et cetera. What an impressive background you've got. We're going to take a final break and come back with some concluding comments with Gina Cody in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back, Brian Crombie Radio Wire. We're chatting tonight with Gina Cody, who in December was given the Order of Canada. And congratulations again, Ms. Cody, for that very well-earned recognition of your career. 1979, as the Shah of Iran was being deposed and the Ayatollah Khomeini was being brought to power. A very young 22-year-old bachelor's of engineering left Iran, emigrated to Montreal, and on her very second day in the country, got enrolled in a new university, got a scholarship, and got her first job. And 40 years later, she's just given a substantial amount of money to the Faculty of Engineering at Concordia University to have that faculty named after her, and also to fund 3 research chairs in data analytics, artificial intelligence, and advanced manufacturing, and as well providing scholarships for students and having a major initiative in inclusivity and diversity and equity. So Gina, congratulations on an incredible career, and thank you for what you've done. I understand you've just recently retired.
That's correct. I sit on a number of boards. I'm involved heavily with the University of Montreal, Concordia, my alma mater. I do a lot of public speaking to young women and girls on women issues, mainly that, the sky is the limit. Go out there and work hard, you will get there. Trying to pass the message that in a male-dominated area of practice, we're all there. I just started, for example, Bombardier in Montreal has started a program for girls that they bringing and mentoring them in the aerospace industry from Gina Cody School, from our aerospace program. So these are the things that I'm involved with at the present time, and I really enjoy it because something I have to mention, Brian, to you, I believe, and I want to send a message to your audience. I constantly say that we have 3 chapters in life. The first chapter of life is when we are born and everybody takes care of us. We are children, our parents, we go to school, our teachers, we go to university still, we have teachers. Everybody is providing for us to become a person of good qualities, hopefully. The second chapter, I consider it as a me chapter, where we start our working and we want to buy our first home and we want to buy our car. It's all about me, my vacation, my home, my children. And it's all about getting successful in what you worked so hard during your first chapter. And there is a third chapter that many of us miss, and that is giving back. When you retire or you stop working, that's the time. And a lot of people do that. If you go to hospital, volunteers, a lot of them are retired people who are giving back in their own way. They take care of people. So my third chapter was, I felt that I have that obligation. I came to Canada, as you mentioned, as a 22-year-old young woman with $2,000 in her pocket, nothing else. Canada gave me that opportunity. My professor at Concordia University, Cedric Marsh, gave me that opportunity. That university believed in me. So what is my duty now to the people who are coming after me? So many people paved the road for me. So now I need to at least create some platform for those coming after me. So that was my third chapter, and I hope your audience who are listening and have that in their mind, that when they do succeed, they remember those who helped them, and they create a platform for those who come after them, so that we will have a society, we will have a country that is suited for everyone, regardless of gender, ethnicity, wealth. We're all equals. There's no difference between us. And that was my message, that engineering, computer science is for everyone. We have to give them scholarship. So if you're financially or not at disadvantage, you can get through your university. We have to provide a platform that is equal and give everybody equal opportunity. There is no difference, and everybody should be given regardless of their wealth or where they come from.
Very well said. I agree with you completely. And thank you for the contribution that you make in that regard. One of the focuses, though, that you've talked about is the fourth industrial revolution and the Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing. Some people are scared of that. What do you say to them?
Being scared of something doesn't make it go away. It is here. It's going to stay. We can't do anything about that. You can't take the clock back. It is something that is happening. Automated cars are out there. They have good and bad. Imagine if we had robots that could be in the hospital and take care of all when COVID started. So our first line workers wouldn't get contaminated and we wouldn't lose them. Or they could do a lot of things that humans had a deficiency to do. So these are things that we can do the good parts. There's a fear of the bad part. And the bad part, I think we are failing the society. I think our governments, and I talk all the time about this issue, that we are becoming reactive rather than proactive. We know that the data is being collected on everybody. We know Facebook has got these informations and they use it for bad and good. We cannot allow the bad to continue. We have to interfere. We have to speak up. The governments have to bring laws. That's why we have laws for. That's why we have a judiciary system. They have to be able of stopping the bad part of the fourth industrial revolution. Is the responsibility of all of us, and mainly our governments, to bring out the laws, to establish what are the ethics of collecting information. Are we allowed to collect information on people, and how we can use them? So,
you are extremely opinionated, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your frankness. I have to probably ask you one last question. Given all of the negative comments about Iran and the issues between the United States and Iran, and between Iraq and Iran, what's your solution in the Middle East?
Oh, I'm not a political person. I don't know what is. So, for example, Iraq and Iran, like, it was a war that started decades ago and it stopped. But the harmony of Middle East is I think also if other countries will stay out of there, maybe the Middle Eastern countries will have a better understanding of each other. I think when they are provoked and other interest group come into being, one of the problems of Iran, maybe because it has oil. If it didn't have oil and minerals, maybe it would have been left alone. So there has been issues after issues. And I think getting into the politics is not my job. I'm not a political person. I can't comment. And honestly, I don't have a solution. If the solution was somebody like Gina Cody had the solution, I think would have been done and dealt with by millions of other people. So I don't have the
Well,
solution.
I think Gina probably does have a solution because she's so smart and bright in so many other areas, but we'll come back to it in another conversation another time. Last comment. If you have a message to parents of young boys and girls, teenage boys and girls, what would be your message today?
Encourage your young girls, your young women, the young children, male or female, to get into STEM programs, encourage them higher education, whatever that is. They don't have to get into higher education, but education is something that gives you a level playing field, especially for minorities, those who feel that they're marginalized. Education is your weapon. If I didn't have a PhD, if I wasn't called Dr. Cody, I may not have got the respect, and I may not have been as successful as I am today if I didn't have the education. They would question it. When I would answer the phone, I would say, I'm the president. They wouldn't believe me, a president of an engineering company, a woman. But when I told them that I have a PhD, how can I help you? Then I got their respect. So my message is encourage your children to get into higher education, because that is their weapon to equalization. It's a level playing field for everybody. When you have that degree, you are no different.
Dr. Gina Cody, recipient of the Order of Canada, and what an unbelievably interesting career. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas on the importance of STEM education for everybody, of diversity, of inclusion, and I think just a great message to everyone about perseverance, don't give up, and work hard. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and giving me the platform to speak with your audience. Thank you.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.